So can you confirm that you can hear me and that you can see the slides? If you can hear and see, if you could type hear and see. Thank you, Julie. Hi, Julie. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Cameron. Sally, thank you. Great. I'm going to assume it's working then. All right, so welcome to the webinar. High Achiever Paradox is the theme. And I'm Dr. Aitsi-Selmi, a transformational coach and consultant. So I often say that 80% of success is showing up. And so congratulations for being here. I really appreciate your being here. And I think you can congratulate yourselves for making the time to come and to reflect. And I invite you to just take a little moment, take a pause and a deep breath and let go of whatever's been happening during the day or during the week or the month or the year. And take a little meditational moment. Just sink into your chair or wherever you're sitting. And know that you're exactly where you need to be right now. There's nowhere to go, nothing you have to really do, no pressure. This is a really, it's an environment that I hope will be spacious for you to be able to do whatever reflection and transformational work you might want to do, and that will help you on your journey in your career and your life. And I invite you to maybe just share a word of how you're feeling or what you've experienced, or rather what you're experiencing in this moment. Are you tired? Are you excited? Are you anticipating something? Are you feeling joyful, hesitant, uncertain? What's going on for you right now? What's the weather like? I'm just going to see if I can bring up the chat. Here we go. So Patricia, excited and uncertain. Mary, uncertain. Yeah, we live in an uncertain world, or in management and leadership, there's this term called VUCA, a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. We've got tired, Julie, hopeful, and a little tired. Yep. Our experience is often mixed. It's not necessarily one thing. Jay, hello. You're curious. Great state to be in. Yolanda's VUCA indeed. Yes. Thank you, everybody, for sharing that. So really, just being with that, whatever it is, it's fine. Whatever you're feeling and experiencing, it's perfect. And feel free to pop any questions, by the way, as we go along, about the work, about something I've said, and I'll try and keep track of the chat. Obviously, it's a bit tricky just doing it while doing the presentation, but I will check the chat regularly. I want this to be an interactive space. So, who am I? So I think many of you know me. Some of you may have worked with me. Some of you are currently working with me. Some of you may have found me on LinkedIn or seen something I've written, or perhaps you're in the Wise Wednesday email community and you read or you get Wise Wednesdays. So welcome, however we're connected. Just wanted to share a little photo of me in an uncertain time. This was just before I made a big career leap in 2016. It was in New Zealand. I was still in my previous job at the time and just been to a conference and really enjoyed it. It was really what I wanted to do when I was a teenager. I was participating in global health policy dialogues. And I was about to step into something completely unknown and didn't really have a very clear plan. And I've found over the past few years that being in nature helps a lot. It really helps to calm and nurture and see more clearly. So that's a little thing about me. Don't know if you want to share something about you. It can be either related to your job, it can be where you are at the moment, where you're calling from. I imagine not everybody is in London. Yolanda, I know where you are, and it's not London. Yeah, if you want to share something about you, that would be great. And remember, one of the benefits of being in a group setting like this is that you might connect with like-minded people and continue the connection afterwards. So I encourage you to interact with each other in the chat. We've got Colorado. Simon says she's left a job and that she wanted to do since she was 20 with no plan B. Congratulations on taking a leap. Sally, currently trying to navigate letting both a career and a long-term relationship ending at the same time. That is a big shift, and I have been there myself. Yes, and you're welcoming a new cycle of change. Beautiful. This is getting us into the transformation theme. Cameron, calling in from the Canadian prairies. Wonderful. So you've got access to some beautiful landscapes, I'm sure. Yolanda in Jersey, also beautiful. I've been there and very much enjoyed it. And Julie, you've moved to Spain. London was too much. Okay, well, congratulations. That sounds really wonderful. And Mary, near retirement from teaching and would like to start a new career. I love that. Thank you. I love that. So wonderful modeling of just that spirit of adventure and openness and willingness to just step into the next career cycle, the next transformation cycle. And Patricia, you're taking a break after burning out in your previous job. Sorry to hear that. And currently in Amsterdam, previously in London. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's, and it can be tender sometimes sharing that. And the more we share these things, the more we can address them. Great, so I hope the chat isn't obstructing your view too much. Forgive me for any technical glitches. Okay. So today's plan. So we had a little check-in and intro. Next, we'll look at setting some individual transformation goals. So what you want to get from today. We'll talk about the high achiever paradox, transformation principles, and the high achiever paradox transformation process, which is a tool I use in coaching with my clients, which seems to help them a lot, and I've got good feedback from it. We'll have a discussion as a group, as well as the chat, so we'll try to share together live. Then we'll do some coaching based on the discussion and the questions that are coming up for you. So you don't have to already have something that you want to explore further through coaching. It might come up or arise as we go along and explore together. Then we'll have a debrief, a little bit of individual reflection for you to wrap up, look at how you might apply what you've learned or any insights you've gained, and then we'll have a checkout. So I hope that works for you. Again, any comments or questions, put them in the chat and I'll be checking it regularly. Okay, so I'm going to be a bit quieter in this bit and invite you to look at what you want from today's time. So you're putting energy, attention, time into today. Just tuning into why you have done that and what you'd like to get out of it. So one question would be, what do you find challenging about the idea of achievement or goals? So I work with high performers, high achievers, people who've done really well, who've got an incredible track record of success. And then there comes a point where our relationship might change. Our relationship to success, achievement, goals starts to change. So, and the journey then, the transformation starts with awareness of what's going on for us. So what do you find challenging about the idea of achievement or goals at the moment? Again, if you share your answers in the chat, I will check them in a moment. And then the next question is, how do you want to evolve or grow in this respect? What's the possibility maybe that you're perceiving? Is there a different way of being with goals or with achievement? Is it possible to have fulfillment instead of achievement? Maybe you're sensing into that. And achievement isn't your priority. Maybe relationship or connection or self-care is your priority. So how do you want to evolve or grow in relation to achievements and goals? Oops. Excuse me. There's just one chat response, Sally. How to deal with massive uncertainty is the main thing, because transformation involves uncertainty, but the process of uncertainty is so hard. Yes, I think you've captured it in a couple of sentences. Change does involve uncertainty. And if you're a knowledge worker, you work in the knowledge economy and you're used to being the expert or the person who has answers, you're the person who solves the problems and gives people answers, it can be even more challenging going through this process, because you've grown an identity, as it were, as a high achiever or an answer holder that you have to let go of, at least temporarily, to go through the transformation. When you're facing the uncertainty, how you maintain your confidence through it? That's a great question, which we will come back to. Mary, the uncertainty of where and what I will be doing in the next couple of months after I retire. I am used to structuring goals and now going into the unknown. What are my skills and interests? So quite a few excellent questions there, Mary, to hold. They're important questions, and you don't need an answer immediately. That's the main thing. Patricia, lack of trust in knowing what it is that I want and fear of ending up in the wrong job career path again. Okay, yeah, I can feel the fear there of making the wrong choice. Again, we will come back to the idea of uncertainty and of sort of slowing down to hear our own deeper answers. Searching for the ability to share a deeper meaning with my new team in a new industry and in a startup organization. That sounds like you have a vision already, and it's more about sharing it. So that's a little bit further along in the transformation cycle. Again, we're talking about a cycle here. It doesn't matter where you are in the cycle, but usually it's the uncertain bit before we get the answer or hear the intuition that's most difficult. And ready but struggling with the courage to lead. Oh, I think a lot of people can relate to that, Julie. I've seen that I can lead, but it takes so much energy to hold leadership. Really depletes me. Okay, well, that's great, because there are different ways of leading, and there are ways that really require sort of pushing, and others that are a little more spacious and open. And so it's about finding your own balance that works for you, that's sustainable. We won't be talking necessarily about leadership today, but again, in your individual process, you can work with whatever you like, and we'll hopefully discuss that a bit more. Oh, and I forgot to mention the transformation process worksheet. If you haven't downloaded it and want to, the address is here. You can still get it now. Can you give me an idea as to whether you did or didn't download it? So yes or no, just so I have an idea of what to assume. Okay, great. All right. So quick definition of the high achiever paradox. So I define it as when your past success gets in the way of your future success. So, and that might be because of the things you've achieved materially. Maybe you have a home, maybe you have a great salary, and it's kind of hard to let go of that. Or it might be something more psychological and internal. So maybe you have a strong identity, you're a professional in a very specialized competitive profession, and you've taken a long time to reach a certain level, and it gives you a certain status, a certain reputation, and that's hard to let go of. Doesn't mean you have to let go of all of it, but if you're going through a transformation, the chances are there's some of it that is outdated or that you're outgrowing, but you can take some of it forward. But the trick is to not let what's outdated hold you back. Okay. So what the crux of today is this process of transformation. And there are different ways of doing it. There are different frameworks. There are different approaches. The one that I've worked with, that's worked for me, that seems to work for my clients, is a process of inquiry, where we question how we see the world. So our past success may have come from certain assumptions, or we've developed certain assumptions about who we are, what's possible in the world, about other people. And those assumptions are fine and they may be working, but there may be a point where they stop working or they are holding you back. So again, going back to the idea of success and the assumptions we hold about success, you may have assumptions about how much money you should be earning, or what kind of people you should be working with, or whether you should have a title. It could be around whether the world is safe and whether you'll land on your feet and be looked after, or whether it's a dangerous competitive place where taking a risk is very dangerous. And so by questioning these assumptions, we can start to loosen them and allow energy to flow forward, so you can take action with a bit less fear and more confidence and a bit more clarity. Now, there's no point from my explaining the theory. It's more important that you have an experience of it. So hopefully by the end of the webinar, if you haven't already had an experience of sort of transformational inquiry, then you will have by the end of this webinar. Again, any questions, do pop them in the chat. Hello, Lai, welcome. So as I was saying, the experience is more important than the theory, and you may have come across some metaphors for transformation. You've probably heard of the metaphor of the butterfly, the caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. And so it was used by Carl Jung, I think, and it's used a lot in this kind of work where something goes into mush, completely dissolves, and then comes out as something completely different. So you get a butterfly from a caterpillar. But before that can happen, there's a lot of messiness in the middle, and that's the uncertain, difficult bit. It's also where the potential is highest, because the creature is no longer a caterpillar. It has the potential to become a butterfly. If it stays as a caterpillar, it can't become a butterfly. So the caterpillar has to sort of surrender to this process, giving up its identity, trusting that it's not going to just die, and that it's going to transform into something else. And the phoenix is also another metaphor where there's a dying and rebirth process. So there are old elements that die and new elements that are born. And you get these very dramatic images that are hopefully in proportion to the intensity of the uncertainty that comes up in this process. Cameron, I'm glad you found the worksheet helpful. Okay, so career transformation is an example of transformation. And so there's this idea that you start off with being very optimistic and thinking, yes, I'm going to go for my dreams. I know where I want to go, or it's time for a change. I'm tired of this, whatever it is, and now I'm going in a different direction. And as you move forward a little, you may start to hesitate. You may start to see the risks. You may start to face some challenges. And it becomes a little more taxing. You may start to encounter negative feedback or people who discourage you. And so you start to doubt yourself. So you're entering a kind of pessimism at that point. Then right at the bottom, it doesn't say it here, but that's what's called the valley of despair. That's the darkest moment in transformation. It can be called limbo. It can be called the dark night of the soul. It can be called the bardo. And there are so many different names for this experience that humans have experienced throughout time. And so if you're feeling very uncertain, then you may be approaching this area, or you may be in it right now. Now, the good news is on the other side, there is light, and there is a new there's a new way of being. There's a new set of opportunities. And as you engage with them and move forward, then new results start to emerge. And that starts to reassure you. And so your whole emotional system starts to calm down and see the new world and feel more comfortable. And that's where you're back in your optimism again. So just checking in. You've already shared a little bit about being uncertain. So if you have a look at these 4 options, and we're always in a transformation cycle, whether we realize it or not, that's what I discovered. You can call it a creative cycle as well, where you're creating a new phase or a new job or a new relationship or just a new way of being in the world. And there's a quiet phase, there's the uncertain phase, and then there's the more active phase, and then there's the results phase. But if we look at these 4 options, are you in the uninformed optimism? Yes, I'm going for my dreams. Are you in the informed pessimism, where you're realizing, oh, this is a bit harder than I imagined? Are you in the uninformed pessimism, or the valley of despair, where you have no idea what you're doing, why you're doing it, where this is going to go? Or are you in the informed optimism, which is, wow, this is actually working out, and it's working out in an unexpected way? So if you want to just put 1, 2, 3, or 4, Sally's uninformed times quite a few zeros. Yes, I hear that you're in a tough space, Sally, and know that there's light. 4, lie is 4, informed optimism, great. So lie is on the other side. Patricia's also in 3. We've got 2, 2, informed pessimism. So we've got quite a range. Mary, 3 would like to be 4, yes. I think most people who are in 3 don't want to be in 3. However, one of the transformations that we can go through on a assumptions level is that being in 3 is actually really good. It's the death before the rebirth. And if it doesn't happen, you cannot move forward. And you're deep enough in that you're not going to go back. So you are almost past the worst of it. You're as close as getting past the worst of it as you can. Cameron shifted quickly from 1 to 3. Okay, maybe you're going through a quick transformation. These cycles can take however long they need to take. And there's nothing wrong. It's just everybody's different. Everybody's circumstances are different. So thank you for sharing, everyone. Quick share of some transformation principles that I promised. And essentially, these are about slowing down to do better. So our instincts are, as high achievers, is to do more research, speak to more people, do more stuff. And the culture we're in doesn't help. So I just want to share a few transformational principles that I've shared in Wise Wednesdays that have helped me and have helped others going through these transformations. So if you have any questions about these, please pop them in the chat. So number one, the way we see our world creates our world. So rather than trying to rearrange the pieces around us, the most return on investment we can get is from looking at our lens, the lens through which we see the world. From there, we can have more possibilities and more options. Number two, the four horsemen of the burnout epidemic are meaningless productivity, busyness, urgency, and moral injury. So in my experience, burnout doesn't happen just because you decide one day to burn out. There's a buildup of a lot of activity, both mental and physical, and a system that supports that or encourages that, which we have to be aware of. Number three, constant urgency is toxic. Give yourself permission to slow down. Again, as if you're a high performer, a high achiever, if you work in the knowledge economy, if you work in most workplaces in the West, there is a tendency to go fast. It's faster, harder, higher, bigger. And so we have to be very self-aware and encourage ourselves or give ourselves permission to slow down, especially if you're in a transformation or if you're in the uncertain bit of the transformation. It's important to get still and quiet so you can hear your own answer from within. Number four, there's no such thing as time management. It's choice management. So often in coaching, people say, oh, I'm not sure I have time to do coaching. Well, that's the point. It's that coaching helps you take a step back and reflect and make the right choices. It helps you slow down and see more clearly. So you're not spinning your wheels. You don't have the experience of the treadmill and of being a sort of endless race that's going nowhere. And this links to number five, which is meditate an hour a day. If you don't have time, meditate 2 hours a day. Or if you translate that into coaching, it's see your coach once a month. And if you don't have time, see them twice a month. Are any of these resonating with anyone? Is there anyone in particular that that you resonate with? Please do share. Number six, the freedom to follow your path requires the courage to leave your past. So this is coming back to the high achiever paradox. There are parts of us that we need to leave behind so we can embrace the future. Thank you, Mary. Number seven, don't let your ideas die in the graveyard of fear. So when we approach uncertainty, our mammalian reptilian brain is going to rebel and say, this is not okay. I'm fine where I am. I have food. I have shelter. Why do I have to go and change things? And you'll feel a lot of energy and in the form of that will feel like fear if you have negative thoughts about the process, if you're believing that there's danger, which your mammalian reptilian brain is trying to tell you, it's trying to warn you because it's afraid of the uncertain, because in our past, uncertainty was dangerous. But our lives today are much less uncertain than they were when we lived in the savannah and all these mechanisms evolved. Number eight, dream big and take one small step at a time every day. So you don't need to take a big leap to go through a transformation. You can foresee a transformation and let it unfold over 2-3 years. I have a client, we started working together 3 years ago. She wanted to shift her She wanted to have a different work environment that's calmer, more peaceful, that gives her more leadership, more opportunity to do research and focus on her passion in her fields. And she also wanted to have more time for a relationship and creating and having more joy in her personal life, creating a meaningful relationship. And by slowing down and doing that, things unfolded slowly, and she's in a very different place that pretty much looks like what she wanted at the time. But it's the consistency and the small steps rather than a huge leap that suddenly gives you the big vision. And the bigger your vision, the more time you probably need to give it. So the bigger your transformation, the more time you need to give it. And taking small steps can really take the edge off the uncertainty and the fear of the unknown. It's just one small step. Number 9, confidence isn't a requirement, it's a result. So you asked earlier about how to stay confident. There's a time where confidence is no longer relevant. It's about taking action despite the fear, or taking action even though the fear is there. You can even use the fear as fuel, because the physiology for fear and excitement is very similar. So you can just relate to it differently. And number 10, I hope that makes sense. Do pop in any questions about the confidence thing, because I know it flips it around and it's a slightly different way of looking at confidence. If you have any questions or want to comment on that or disagree, please put it in the chat. Number 10, action trumps perfection. So high achievers, generally perfectionists, don't like failing, don't like to be seen as the person who didn't do it properly or didn't do it right. And so that can hold us back from taking the action we need, and including a transformation. Maybe you need to send an email, or maybe you need to write a paper or blog, or you need to do a talk. Action trumps perfection. And finally, the bonus, one of my favorites, the antidote to doubt is commitment. Again, another way of looking at confidence. So you don't need to feel confident, you just need to commit. And if you need to commit to not knowing, that's okay. I'm committed to not knowing right now because I'm in a process, and part of the process is to not know for a little while. And I'm committed to that. All right, I'm just having a look at the chat. Thank you, Mary. I'm glad you think they're all excellent principles. Sally, 6 to 10. Patricia, agree, all of them resonate. And Cameron, 3 and 6. 6 is the freedom to follow your path. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of these are impactful. 3, 4, and 6. Number 10, action trumps perfection. Yeah. And you'll notice that they have similar themes, which are courage, commitment. I would probably tie them all up with courage, including the courage to slow down and give yourself space. Okay. So transforming limiting beliefs. This is where we get to do a little bit of work, a little bit of, you get to work on your process. So if you have the transformation process worksheet, it'd be great if you had it in front of you. Otherwise, I'll try and guide you through it. Just a quick question here, Cameron. How do you manage others' perception of you doing these things for yourself? People are critical of others being self-focused. Yes, that's a great question. And for leaders, that's a challenge, because there are times when you do have to focus on what you know you need to do, and not try to please or placate the group. That's why it's important to take time and reflect so you can hear your own vision or your own voice free from the influence of the group. And I often have to go to nature, or it was when I was in the middle of nowhere in Alaska that I really heard my own voice about my career shift. I hope that makes sense. And so there might be a belief there, Cameron, that you might want to work with around whether other people need to agree with you for you to take action. Julie, most of them resonate strongly. The burnout and urgency for sure. Rather focus on 10 movement. Producing something is always 100% more than nothing. Yes. We live in a consumerist society, and creating and producing is much more fulfilling than consuming. So there's a shift there, and way of being and mindset from consuming to creating. Okay, Cameron, glad that answered your question. Okay, so if you have the transformation worksheet, now's the time to use it. Otherwise, I'll try and guide you through it in the best way I can. So think about your own situation, the one that's kind of coming up and that you're asking questions about. If it's a huge transformation, like Sally mentioned, or if it's a more gentle one where you've seen it coming and you're kind of going along with it, even though you're not quite sure. But you can be completely taken out of your hands, and you're suddenly faced with the transformation. So whichever one is relevant to you, you can use it. Whichever stage you're at of a transformation, that's fine. What we're going to look at now are some of the thoughts that you have around it. And the more specific you can get, the better. So it can be, I was working with a client the other day. It's, I need to know the answer now. And as we worked through that, she started to realize that that wasn't true in this moment, that she didn't need to know the answer to what she needed to do with her career in this instance right now. So see if you can identify a particular thought that causes you, that is recurring, it keeps coming back, and you have a notion that it's probably not very helpful to you. Another one could be, I need to do things perfectly, or it's not okay to not have a job all the time. Have a think, and if you're willing to share them in the chat, that's great, but you don't have to. This is your private work, so only share it if you feel comfortable or you want some comments on it. So now look at your belief or your thought. Sally, you shared, I hate my job, but I have to stay until my business takes off. Okay, so that's a good one to work with. Relationship, I will never have a relationship as good as the last one. I think most of us will recognize these thoughts that, especially in relationships, when a relationship ends, especially if you wanted the relationship to continue, that a very common thought is to think, this was great and it's never going to get any better. But when you're in it, it feels very real and specific to you. So I honor that and I acknowledge that. I think if you want to work with something a little less intense, maybe I have to stay until my business takes off is a good belief to work with. I hope that helps, Sally. So the next thing you want to do with the belief you've identified is, how is this belief not serving you? How is this belief not serving you? Because you didn't come up with this belief, it just popped into your head, right? So you're not responsible for it, but you can question it like a scientist. If you see this belief as an assumption or a hypothesis about the world, for example, I have to stay until my business takes off. I hate my job and I have to stay in it until my business takes off. You could see that like a scientist. It's a theory, it's an assumption. Maybe it's not true. And so start looking at how it's not serving you to treat it as true. So I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to go slowly whilst being mindful of time. The next question is, what happens when you believe that thought or assumption? So Julie, you've said, I need to have more knowledge, capability, skills behind me to see myself as a leader. Right, perfect. That's also a great one. So notice what happens when you believe I need to have more knowledge, capability, skills behind me to see myself as a leader. What are you feeling as you believe that, or as you think that thought? What are you motivated to do, or what are you discouraged from doing by treating that thought as true? Again, acknowledging that it might not be true. So the next question is, Jay, I need to have work lined up for next year now. Okay. Okay. I need to have work lined up for next year now. I mean, that is also, there are assumptions within that assumption that you could question, but also one you can work with. So the question number 4 would be, well, what's an alternative view to I need to have work lined up for next year now? Again, looking at it as a scientist, what are the alternative hypotheses you might work with? And Jay Kunken, not sure what your first name is, but in career, I am in command and control environment and open to finding a new job. How do I process through finding the opportunity, ensuring? Okay, so I encourage you to find one statement in there, or a question, if that's easier for you. Rather than a long statement like that, it's quite hard to see clearly and to find the answer you're really looking for. So an example would be, okay, so one thing you could work with is, I will make the same mistake again, or I'm afraid of making the same mistake again. Maybe there's a part of you that's thinking, I don't make good choices. But keep it simple and very practical and relevant. And if you want to pop your statement. So I think we were kind of coming to the alternative view, so coming up with the alternative hypotheses. So I hope you've all got some alternative hypotheses. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to everyone's questions or comments in the chat. So the final question is, what do you commit to? Now that you've loosened your assumptions, the high achiever paradox is loosened a little bit and you can start to resolve it, what can you commit to? Either in terms of choosing to be very present to yourself and what's happening without judging yourself, or maybe there's an action. You felt there's something you really should do. You're gonna show up at that meeting and chair it as the leader, or whatever. There are so many different options, it doesn't make sense for me to even try. So I'd love to hear from you. So who wants to come online and share maybe one of their statements, or look at an aspect of the process that maybe you're confused about, or you want to ask more questions about? And if there's something that you know, are happy to dive in a little bit, you're happy for me to ask you a few questions around, then this is a great moment to do it. So I'm just going to give you a bit of time to gather your courage and step into the unknown. If you have a fear of visibility as a leader, this is a good opportunity. And you can stay, what's it called? You don't have to turn on your video if you don't want to, you can just speak, but it's nice if people can see you. Cameron, so I think it was Cameron first and then Sally. So let's go in that order. Cameron, I'm going to try and unmute you, or if you want to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
There we are. Hello.
Hi.
I don't think I can hear you, so make sure you're unmuted at your end and that your microphone is working. Oh, you've disappeared. So maybe Cameron, while you all check that, I'll go to Sally and then I'll come back to you if that's okay. All right. So Sally, you want to come online, or rather
Yeah,
come?
can you
I'm not sure
hear
what the
me?
right word is. Come in. Come. Unmute yourself and speak.
I've unmuted. I'm not sure if you
Oh,
can hear me.
so whoever is there, I can't hear you, Cameron. So Sally, if you wanna hop
Yes,
on,
I'm
please do.
unmuted. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Let me see. I guess everybody's trying to. Yeah, you're unmuted, Sally, so I should be able to hear you.
Yeah, I'm still speaking.
Can
I'm not sure if
you?
you can hear me now.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be
No?
working. Oh dear. Um. So you can hear me, but I can't hear you. Sally's in. Yeah. Oh, you can hear Sally. Okay, so there's something not working on my end for some reason. Oh, sorry about that. That's more technical glitches than usual. The anti-transformation demons interfering. Maybe close the presentations. Thank you. Okay, I will try that. Okay. Stop share. Okay, so let's try again. Sally, can you say something?
Yeah, I think I'm still unmuted. Can you hear me?
Something is definitely not working. Well, maybe we'll just have to be content with chat for this time. Sorry about that. I'm glad you can all hear Sally. I'm just going to check my Zoom settings again. I definitely can't hear anyone. Ah, right. I've changed the okay, perfect. All right. So I can hear. So maybe let's go back in the order. So Cameron and then Sally. Cameron, would you like to try again? And I'm going to try and mute everybody again. Or if you can.
Sure. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes. And I'm going to unmute you again. Yes. And you can hear me?
Oh, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. So where I landed on the worksheet, one of the things that I tend to do is I'm very judgmental, or I assume things about others. As far as, so for me right now, it's just a bit of frustration being new with an organization, having new colleagues, and I guess I desire more communication and trust from others, and I'm really struggling with being so new and just assuming they don't trust me, or they don't want to communicate with me. They might be embarrassed to ask for help and utilize my skill set. So where I landed on number 5 was that, moving forward, I'm going to be a little more willing to help out where I can within the limitations of my role, and be a little bit more understanding that it is somewhat embarrassing to ask for help, ask somebody new to help you out, things like that. So I'm going to try to be more understanding of them, and not criticizing them if they're failing and I'm watching it and not being able to help. It's been really frustrating for me, but the exercise was really interesting to me. At the end of it, I kind of came to terms with it just by going through those 5 steps.
Yeah.
So that's going to be my takeaway from the worksheet and spending this time.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful to have everything to have a result and to be able to wrap it up. And is there anything in this moment that isn't quite wrapped up that maybe you wanna share? Or Is there a question about around a piece of the process that maybe you weren't sure about?
No, I think I didn't understand it when I was first going through it step by step. I didn't look ahead and try to figure it out ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think going through the full process
Mm-hmm.
was really critical in saying, okay, it just, I made a note earlier about, sometimes I think you got to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old adage, but that's what this reminded me of.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my input. I found it very, very interesting tool. So thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And it's great. You've kind of gone ahead to the final piece of the webinar, but I hope you stay until the end anyway.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. So Sally, do you still want to come on?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can indeed. Everybody could hear you except me, and now I can. So thank you for your patience.
So what I had at the start was that I don't really like my career at all. It brings me a lot of frustration, and I basically get zero fulfillment from it. And I'm trying to transition into business, but to do that takes money. So I've been feeling very trapped in that I feel like I have to stay until the business takes off. And that could be any sort of length of time.
Okay.
So, yeah. So what I've got for how it's not serving me is that it's making me feel very frustrated, angry, trapped going into work every day and not knowing how long that is going to go on for.
And just for me to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, so you're working with the statement, I have to stay in the job for longer than I want. I'm sorry, I don't have the chat from the previous bit, so I can't remember which statement you were working with. And it's always best to isolate a single statement.
Yeah, the statement I've got is I hate my job.
Okay.
But I have to do it until I replace my income.
Okay, so I have to do my job until I replace my income. So which one, because of time, it's best to just pick one. So you want to work with I hate my job, or I have to stay in my job until I have income from my business?
The second one.
The second one. So I have to stay in my job until I can make income from my business. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you do with the how is it not serving you? You mentioned something, but would you mind repeating that?
So I said that it makes me feel very trapped and that I can't leave, and that leads to feeling very frustrated and angry and trapped in work.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine that, because you're telling yourself you can't leave, right?
Yeah.
Any other way it's not serving you, to believe the statement or to engage with that thought?
It's cutting me off from any other option that I could potentially take in this time period. It's making me think that there's only one solution to this, or one route that I could be taking.
Exactly. And that's often what these beliefs do. They just narrow in and they cut off the other options. Any other? I'm hearing the sound of insight. Is that right?
Well, it's the sound that even though I had an alternative view, which was that I could start actually doing the maths in terms of what it will take to set up the business and then make sure I have that amount saved. What I can't help but notice is that that may not be practical, because the uncertainty of not knowing when things will take off means that it may not work.
That is true, and that is true of any business, right? It's not just your business. That's just what business is, what life is, and there are no guarantees, right? So that's nothing. That's not. I was going to say it's not necessarily a problem. It's more of an observation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true.
So you don't need to add that to the pile of things I need to resolve. That's just how business works, right?
Mm.
Any alternative views on or other statements to alternative statements to I have to stay in the job until I make income from my business?
I mean, another alternative statement could be I could leave for 6 months and do the savings thing and see what happens, and then see after 6 months what the situation is.
So you could give yourself a bit of breathing space and not worry too much.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And then if it comes to it, I could always go back or find another job.
Yeah. So you're saying you stay in the job and without worrying too much, or you leave the job and then you can always go back in 6 months. And then those are two options, obviously.
Yeah. As in a few months, maybe choose to leave for 6 months and then see what happens with business, and if necessary, come back after that time period.
And how does that option feel to you?
Very scary and still uncertain.
Is there another option? What if you give yourself permission to say, I don't, just give yourself permission without having to come to a solution, but just give yourself permission to say, I don't have to stay in the job until I make money from my business?
I worry about the practicalities.
I guess you don't have to necessarily stay in this job, right?
That's true.
And also, when we're doing kind of awareness work and changing our way of being in the world, you can change your job without changing it because you're changing how you're doing it, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So a slight shift internally can completely transform what's happening externally.
Yeah, because I guess if I didn't see this job as something I had to do, that it was just a temporary thing, I probably wouldn't be feeling this trapped or annoyed in the first place.
Right. So by shifting your perspective or by reprogramming the lens.
Yeah. And if I tell myself, well, I'm actually choosing to do it for a overall vision I have.
Right.
Quite significantly, I guess.
Yeah. So you're seeing it as your angel investor.
Yeah, pretty much.
And or a normal investor, and they can be pretty difficult.
Yeah, it's true, actually. I guess I could always tell myself this is the last step before doing what I want, and last step that I'm choosing to take.
Yeah.
I could still leave.
Yeah,
I'm
you can.
Be homeless.
Yeah, I'm sure you won't be homeless. I understand this kind of feeling of the rug being pulled from under your feet happened this week. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's important to really give yourself some space, look after yourself as the shock sort of settles. And you can do this work at the same time, and you'll make further gains if you just give yourself some nurturing to start with.
Agreed. I plan to.
Wonderful. So is there a commitment you want to make to yourself, either just into as in your inner, in your being, or in your doing, that you want to share with the group?
I think a good commitment to make would be reminding myself that I'm choosing to be there for a higher goal and purpose that I have. However, if I wanted to leave, I can give a week's notice.
Yeah.
And there's no one that's actually stopping me from doing that other than myself.
Yeah. How does it feel to hold that thought?
I don't quite believe it just yet.
Okay. I understand and I acknowledge that. And that's why I really invite you to take some time to rest and relax for the initial shock to settle.
Yeah.
Before requiring more of yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is that okay? Anything else?
No, that's everything. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Sally. Thank you. Just going to check the screen. Okay, so is there any questions from anyone else? I don't know if we have time for another sort of live conversation, but if there is something you want to share quickly or you want to ask about, please put it in the chat or just unmute yourself and come online. You have 2 or 3 minutes. Is everybody still here? Yes, okay, still engaged. Okay, great. Just checking because you can see me, I can't see you, so I have no idea. I'm just going to see if I can share the screen again so we can wrap up. Let's check the chat again. Okay, great. All right, so let's take this home. So you got a little demonstration there of what it's like to work the process. And hopefully you've had some insights yourselves. So as a debrief, hopefully you went through the process, you did the work and you gave it some attention. So what did you notice? And did something surprise you, or did you have an insight either from hearing others or from doing your own work? Again, if you want to share that in the chat, that would be helpful. It gives me an idea whether this landed or whether it was too fast or need to change it next time. This is the bit where you get to give me feedback and also see whether, take your own learning forward. So please do share. What did you notice in this process? And did something surprise you or spark an insight? For me, I'm always surprised that the answer I get is very different to what I was expecting. If I've done the work properly, usually there's something very different that emerges. So Mary, to learn more about confidence isn't a requirement, it's a result. Yes, absolutely. Some people call it faith, that you just don't know. You don't know, the odds look impossible, but you're going to take a step forward. And Sally, accepting that transformation is a process and not just going to happen overnight, and to be patient with the process. Yes, you deserve all the patience and time in the world. And remember, we live in a culture that puts pressure on us to deliver fast, to deliver more. And it's tiring and it's not human or humane. So until the system is healthier, we have to work on an individual level to give ourselves permission. Patricia, note to yourself, stop asking others to tell you what to do. Be okay with not knowing and take responsibility for making your own decisions, your own choices. That's beautiful. I really feel your strength there. And I need to focus on how I can shift internally in order to show up different externally. Yes, and I love the examples from nature and from the laws of physics. So if you have a lever, right, the fulcrum, where you place the fulcrum makes it easier or harder, right, to shift the weight. So when you look internally, you're actually placing the fulcrum of change or transformation in the optimal place. So you're not working hard to shift things around you or to make people change. You're shifting your own mental lens, and that shifts what's visible on the outside and gives you more options, gives you more space, gives you more choice. Thank you for that. And I'm glad you like the fulcrum analogy. Okay, so wrapping up again, just 2 or 3 more slides. Again, individual reflection, kind of, hopefully you're engaging with that. did you notice anything shift, or did you become aware of assumptions you have about yourself, about others, or about the world? Those are usually the things that get in the way, and that's why we call them limiting beliefs. So if you notice something and it shifted, and I think some of you did notice a shift, how will this change your way of being in the world? Are you going to show up more powerfully, more present? Are you going to stand up straight and speak fully? So how will it change your way of being or doing? So there's a spectrum. It's not a clear divide, but there's things to do with how we are and things to do with what we do. But they're both ultimately very intimately linked. And if you've noticed any change, or you want to commit to a change, then do share it. Sharing publicly and writing your commitments and sharing them increases the likelihood that they will happen. So I guess the simple question will be, what did you learn? And what will you start doing, or what will you stop doing? Coaching has this reputation for being motivational and being about pushing through. But transformational coaching is not that. It looks at all the cycles of the creativity, of how we are in the world. And there are times when we need to get out there and push, or it feels like pushing. And there are times when we need to slow down and go in. And that's the phase we're not taught very well. It's not really in the culture. And so that's where there's value in doing the work yourself and giving yourself permission. So if there's anything you're going to stop doing, write it down, because that may have the biggest impact for you if you're a high achiever. All right, so checking out, if there's anything you want to put in the chat as feedback, as comments, I very much welcome those. It's always helpful to know how these things landed. I don't like the one-sided kind of feeling of talks and webinars, but we have to make do. Sally, you're committing to remembering you have a choice to do this job and could leave next week if you wanted to. Yeah, that sounds as true or truer as the previous belief. Are you going to stop smoking? Excellent. That's the biggest preventive step you can take in terms of health and risk factors. Julie, you love VUCA. That's my organization. Yeah. A worksheet is helpful to keep scratching on this limiting belief. Yeah. Definitely encourage, support you and stand with you in letting go of any beliefs around needing to do more or have more credentials or more qualifications for you to lead. Anybody can show up as a leader in a situation. Leadership is really about going first where others are afraid to go. And so if you're here and you're showing up prepared and willing to face the uncertainty that's presented to you in your life, you're being a leader. You're doing what a lot of humans don't want to do, which is step into the unknown, go first, and lead the way. Yeah. Mary, be more present. Yeah, we can all benefit with being more present to our experience and dropping all the narratives, the stories, the assumptions that hold us back. And now you're committed to being more open-minded and framing difficulties as opportunities to learn. Absolutely. We're in a constant learning process, and there's no such thing as failure if you see it as a repetition that gave you an insight. Okay, so I was thinking, you might be feeling a lot of energy, or maybe you're kind of not feeling any energy. Just checking in with you right now as we close this webinar. Wherever you are is perfect. Whatever you've done is perfect. And thank you for showing up today, for bearing with me through the technical glitches, for being here for yourself, and for others around you who will benefit from your courage to transform. So thank you. Any questions, final questions or comments, do pop them in. Otherwise, all it remains for me to do is say thank you and tell you about the replay that I'll send tomorrow, or as soon as I can get the 2 bits of the recording together. In terms of next steps, if you want to stay connected, please feel free to sign up to Wise Wednesdays, which is the email community. When you sign up, you get the transformation worksheet, or if you want it, just email me and I will send it to you. If you want to, if you're in London, or you can come to London and you want to have, to do some coaching face-to-face and work together in a small group, the next event is on the 14th of December, and it's around the theme of the new year and the new decade. So it'll be goodbye resolutions and hello inspired living. Again, focusing on the transformation process rather than the sort of hard goals and the pressure to achieve goals, which doesn't really work. And I want to acknowledge you for being here. If you don't know me, that's hello. Thank you for showing up and being here and doing this work. And I want to offer an opportunity to speak with me one-to-one if you'd like to do that. I'd like to make 3 coaching slots available for a conversation if you'd like to do that and go a bit deeper into this work, or ask any questions, or sort of look at your own personal situation more specifically. So these are complimentary, they're free. It's an opportunity for me to connect with you more deeply and for you to do some work for yourselves in a one-to-one situation. So I'll send all of that by email, so you don't have to worry about any of this right now. You can just take a little bit of time to digest and take it in, and just congratulate yourselves for having been here and having done this work. The world is a better place for it, is my belief. So thank you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Cameron. You're on Wise Wednesdays. Thank you. Mary, you learned so much from Wise Wednesdays. Thank you. Okay, so to sign up for Wise Wednesdays, I will send a link in the email, in the follow-up email, or you can just go to my website, www.drromina.com. It's on the slide there, and you can, there'll be a sign-up box where you can sign up, or if the worst comes to the worst, just email me and I will help you out directly. Julie, thank you. Great to see you. I hope it's sunnier in Spain than it is here. Amar, thank you, and I encourage you to commit to stopping smoking and to become the non-smoker that you really are. Sally, you're so welcome. Thank you for your courage. Lai, thank you. Jay, thank you. So lovely to see you. Yolanda, thank you. And Sharon, hello. Welcome and thank you. All right, everyone. I wish you a wonderful rest of the day or evening, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.